نتبع هداه. So last week we spoke about the tafkhim and tarqiq. Anybody has questions about tafkhim and tarqiq? All right. I was hoping that we'll have the access to the projector. Brother Slim was saying that he should be coming. And most of the stuff I have it on the slides, so Salam. All right, let's see what we can do. Anybody wants to remind us what are the letters of isti'la? The letters that are always strong. Say again?
I don't remember the letters. I remember the letters.
All right, you remember the letters but not the sentence, the wording. All right, kha, and what else? And the sad. خصة باطن Oops. Like this, right? Okay, I forgot a dot here. Have enough dots? All right. 7 letters. Some of the examples that I had on the slide here, I will just write down maybe 1 or 2 examples on the board. The word At-talaq, for example. What does the word talaq mean? Divorce. Right? And the word, so the word talaq is of course mentioned in the Quran several times. And the other word is something like that. The word at-talaq, and you notice that they are written exactly the same way. The only difference is the letter ta in the word talaq and the letter ta in the word talaq. And the word talaq means the day of the meeting, which is the day of resurrection. So in terms of meanings, the two words, they have nothing to do with each other, right? Completely different words. Which means that if a person does not make a good tafkhim of the letter ta, he will find himself saying talaq, right, which is a completely different word. So I had a series of words like this in the Quran where mispronouncing the letter, I guess not making it strong enough, is mispronouncing it, right? So we said in terms of if we want to classify this mistake, it has to do with makharij al-huruf, the points of articulations, and also the tafkhim and tarqiq. right? The tafkhim and tarqiq. So if a person is not making the ta in the word talaq strong enough, we can say that he didn't make it strong enough, but we can also say he didn't pronounce it properly. So the makharaj or the makharaj of the ta was wrong, right? Or the makharaj of the ta was wrong. And we could also show some examples of, I know we spoke about this in the past, where a person makes a mistake in the haraka. That means he would put a fatha instead of a kasra, or he would put a kasra instead of a fatha, or he would put a dhamma or instead of a fatha, and so on. We wrote down the word bir and the word bar, if you remember, which is like the same word, but one of them has a kasra, or one of them has bir has a kasra, yeah, the ba has a kasra, the other one, the ba has a fatha, and the word bur, which may not be found in the Quran, but it has a dhamma. So a single haraka will change the word completely from one meaning to something completely different, or in some cases to the opposite, to something completely opposite. Right? This is in terms of tafkhim and tarqiq. All right, if we have a chance, we'll see other examples. But for now, let's talk about the topic of the day, which is al-hams. In traditional Tajweed courses, they usually start with the characteristics of the points of articulations, makharij al-huruf, and also the characteristics of the letters, which are called sifat al-huruf. Sifat al-huruf, the characteristics of the letters. Each letter has a number of characteristics, right? Some of them have like 3, 4, 5, 6, and so on. And usually they require students to memorize the characteristics. The teacher would tell you the letter ta, what are the characteristics of the letter ta, and you will start counting the characteristics. But here we are only interested in maybe the most common ones, or the ones that give people trouble the most. Right? So in this case, we will be talking about al-hams. Al-hams is, we can call it a whisper, or they also call it in some books of Tajweed concealment. Concealment. It's like when you are trying to whisper something to someone, you are trying to conceal it from others, right? And that's why they use the word concealment. And obviously, every time we talk about a characteristic, we will have more than one letter sharing that same characteristic, obviously. So we will have a group of letters, similar to what we have here in terms of the strong letters, the letters of isti'la. This group had 7 letters, right? And the group of al-hams has how many letters? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 letters. And they are grouped in this sentence. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So we have 10 letters. سكت فحثه شخص. You may find it in some other books. فسكت or فحثه شخص سكت, or any combination of. I mean, the main thing is this sentence is supposed to help you remember the letters, right? So whatever way helps you to memorize them or to remember them, then that would be best. سكت فحثه شخص. So we have 10 letters. So these letters have the common characteristic of al-hams, right? Al-hams. From these 10 letters, we'll be concentrating on only two, the kaf and the ta. This one here, and the ta. And I want to ask you, what is different, for those of you who are not silent, what is different from the other letters? What does the kaf and the ta have different? I mean, I am not asking you to name a characteristic, just an opinion, like what makes the kaf and the ta different than the other letters that are here on the board?
Common mistake.
It's a common mistake? Yeah, it is a common mistake.
Not to pronounce, not to give hams to these letters.
Jazakallah khair. It is a common mistake that people, they don't do hams when it comes to the kaf and the ta. But there is something else I'm looking for. Maybe I will help you with a hint. They say if you want to know where a letter comes from in terms of point of articulation, in terms of makharij al-huruf or makhraj al-harf, you have to put a hamza before it, sukun on it, and hamza before it. For example, if you want to know where the sin comes from, you would put a sukun on the sin and put a hamza before it and say as, right? You say as, and it gives you an idea where it comes from. So if we do this for all these letters, we say as, ak, at, af, ah, ath, ah, ash, akh, as. Do we notice anything different?
It's easy to do hams for other letters than kaf and ta.
That's true, yes. Barakallah fiqh.
The placement of your tongue is very close to each other between those two letters.
All right. Jazakallah khair, Brother Sajjad. Anybody else?
I think it's to do with the continuation of the sound.
Mm-hmm. Yes, Jazakallah khair. That's probably closer, even though you were close enough, Brother Hanif. This is closer to the answer. The kaf and the ta have another characteristic which is called al-jahr. And you will notice this characteristic when you try to say it like this. Ak, the sound or the breath or the air is held, is imprisoned, right? It's stopped. Ak. When you say ak, but if you say af, there is a flow of air is still coming out. But when you say ak, it's like you are stopping the airflow. When you say at, right, the ta, at, you can compare it now, right? When you say as, you see the flow of air continues. When you say af, ah, ath, ah, ash, akh, as. But when you say ak or at, then it tends to block the air from coming out, or the sound. You see how different it is? The kaf and the ta? All right. So how do we do this hams? This is the main point, is how to put this into practice, into actual practice. The hams happens when obviously the letter has a sukoon, right? When the letter has a sukoon. And obviously these letters are, because of these characteristics, they tend to be weak when they have a sukoon, right? Even though we have the sad here, even though the sad is one of the letters of isti'la, one of the strong letters, but if you remember last week we said when the letter of isti'la has a sukoon, it is at its weakest state. No? Or it's close to the weakest. Jazakallah khair. Yes, my mistake. It is close to the weakest. It is next to the weakest, because the weakest, as Brother Hanif mentioned, when it has a kasra. So it is close to being the weakest. We said that there are five states, right? When the letter of isti'la has a fatha and an alif after it, like the word qala. The second state is when the letter of isti'la has a fatha only, no alif after it. And then when it has a dhamma, and then when it has a sukoon, and then finally when it has a kasra. So having a sukoon makes it, close to being the weakest. So the way how to do the hams, and maybe we'll compare it with what is the common mistake, or how people make it when they don't pronounce it properly, is, let's say this word, the word sakat. If we put a sukoon on the ta and we use this as a word, or shall we use another example? Let's use the word from the surah that we will be reading today, the word kuwirat, right? Kuwirat. All right, so if a person does not do a hams here, he would say kuwirat, 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 as if there is no ta. We don't hear the ta. And these are one of the features that you don't hear if you are listening to a recording. You don't hear if the quality of the recording is not very good. You will not hear the hams. That's why we always, ask people to listen to or to download good recording, good quality recording, so that you can hear the hams. So again, if I don't say the hams, if I don't know how to do the hams, I would say kuwirat, kuwirat. You don't hear the ta. But if I do the hams, I would say kuwirat. Right? Kuwirat. Did you hear the difference? Kuwirat. What happens is that the air is blocked, and then a small opening is made to release just the tiniest bit of air. If I release too much air, or if the opening after blocking the air is too big, then it will become like a qalqala. I don't want to say kuwirat, right? This is now a qalqala. Kuwirat, kuwirat. Or if I try to do it too fast. Kuwirat, right? And of course, you may find in some books of Tajweed that when the letter of hams, in this case the ta or the kaf, is in the middle of a word, it is softer. It is not as apparent as when it is at the end of the word. It's like the qalqala, but when it is in the middle, it's weaker than if it is at the end of the word. But what is important for us is to know how to do it. This is the most important. Whether it is weaker or stronger, that's maybe a further step. But to be able to do it properly, or at least to know how to practice it, then that's the first major step. So I said, kuwirat, kuwirat, right? Kuwirat. If it is in the middle, it is more difficult to do, obviously. At the end, it's for most people, it's easier when the hams is at the end of the word. And usually, in most cases, not all the cases, most of the cases, it's going to be at the end of the ayah, so you're going to be stopping there. Because if you don't stop, that means it is similar to when it is in the middle of the word, right? If we are not stopping, so it's more challenging. One of the maybe challenging ayat, I think you read it last time. Not that one, in Surah Al-Shams. We read Surah Al-Shams last time, right? In Surah Al-Shams, what's the ayah? كذبت ثمود. كذبت ثمود. That's one of the most challenging ones in the probably in the Quran. كذبت ثمود. Even though it is at the end of the word, but because there is a ta after it, it makes it very challenging, especially if you try to read it fast. If you try to read it fast, most people would miss it. Most people. I would say 98% of people would miss it if you try to do it too fast. So you have to be very slow to try to make it properly. كذبت ثمود. To be able to do the hams and then say the tha. Right? Because the transition between doing the hams and going to the tha is very kind of heavy. كذبت ثمود. Let's give another example of when the ta is in the middle of a word. And I know I mentioned it in the past. The word al-qatl. I'm putting a sukoon on the lam, assuming that we are stopping there. And when there is a sukoon on the lam, it's even more challenging. That's also one of the most challenging words in terms of hams, right? And I know I mentioned before, or I try to imitate somebody who doesn't know hams, how it will sound like. There is a very distinct sound that will come out if you don't do hams here in this word. It will sound like this: al-qatl, al-qatl, like this, if there is no hams. Because now the air is escaping from the side, right? Al-qatl, like this. But with the hams, it should sound something like this. Al-qatl. Al-qatl. It's still challenging. And of course, you have to go slow on this one. You have to go slow so that you can get the hams and also the lam. The lam is kind of challenging here because it has a sukoon. Al-qatl. And it reminded me of when we were praying Tahajweed during Ramadan in Richmond Masjid. So it's a local story, right? And we had two people who mastered the 10 qira'at, Sheikh Mustafa and Sheikh Abdul Rahman, I remember them. And two others, obviously, who were like the Taraweeh leaders, excellent reciters and excellent Tajweed people. So we had like 4 people, and there were other young people who were introduced. So one of the young people who were introduced, who later memorized the whole Quran, he used to say the ta, and it is common that some people, this is how they pronounce the ta. They pronounce the ta with hams all the time, right? I don't know if it makes sense. This is how they talk. Whether the ta has a sukoon or not, they would still pronounce it with an S sound, right? What are some words that have T in them? Let's say in English, T, attain, something like this. Attain or obtain, right? They would have, we call it in Tajweed, hams. So this is how we recited the Quran as well, this person. And Sheikh Mustafa later on, he said, "You killed me." He said it was so annoying. It was so annoying for him to hear the ta being recited this way throughout the Quran. Right? So you have on one hand some people, they don't know how to do hams at all. On the other hand, you have some people who do hams everywhere, in all the ta. So we only do it when the ta has a sukoon. So we have to make sure. And it is an issue in some areas, in some countries, in some areas, even within the same country, in some areas, this is how they speak, right? This is how they speak. They have the ta, they say ta instead of ta. So it has this S sound in it, which we call in Tajweed hams. They say ta instead of ta. So these are 2 examples of ta. Let's give maybe a couple examples of kaf. Let's, like a simple word, like this is found in the Quran quite a bit. Laka. Laka, which means for you. So when I stop on it, I would say lak, lak, lak. So I block the air and then release a tiny bit of air after it. Lak. And I shouldn't try to do it too fast. As I said, if you do it too fast, it will become like a qalqala, laka. Or it almost sounded like the kaf has a fatha on it. So we say lak. Or in Surah, like you mentioned, Surah Al-Sharh, dhikrak. Maybe this is the next example because it has both a kaf in the middle and at the end in the same word. So we have a ka in the middle and ka at the end. And of course, if we are stopping, then we'll put a sukoon on the kaf, on the last kaf. So I would say dhikrak, dhikrak, ذكرك. If I don't know hams, then I would say ذكرك. ذكرك. Let's try it again. ذكرك. Basically, we won't be able to hear the kaf. ذكرك. I'm trying to say it wrong. ذكرك. So if I say it without hams, like we won't be able to hear the kaf. Right? We won't be able to hear the kaf. Similarly, like the word kuwirat, like we mentioned earlier. And I remember when we were reading Surah Al-Ghashiyah, I always emphasized the word or emphasize that we should make sure we pronounce the ta at the end. Of course, as a ha. Ghashiyah. So here, if we don't do hams in the word kuwirat, then the listener will not know that there is a ta at the end. It will sound like kuwirat, kuwirat. Right? Does it make sense? Is it clear enough? All right. So obviously the reason we selected Surah Al-Takwir for this is because obviously it has a lot of this in a lot of hams in almost every ayah. And the ayat are short. Even though they are short, there's hams in every ayah, almost. So next week we'll conclude this level 4, with Al-Mithlan, Al-Mutajanisan, Al-Mutaqariban. And this lesson has to do with also with makharij al-huruf, the points of articulations, the letters that are close to each other in terms of pronunciation, in terms of point of articulation. This is the idea of the topic. Because sometimes when the letters are very, very close to each other in terms of pronunciation, sometimes they would merge them in what we call like idgham. Right? This is what idgham is to merge two letters that are either because they are the same, it's the same letter, like we have seen in the meme, it's a meme and the meme, or because they are very, very similar and very close. And they are close because they share a lot of the characteristics. So a lot of the characteristics for one are the same for the other. And that's why they are close. Or they are close because they share these characteristics. However you want to look at it. So this is the idea of the topic next week. We'll inshallah give some examples and see why they differentiate between the mithlan and the mutajanisan and the mutaqariban. And these are like similar words, right? Similar words. Or they have at least a similar idea behind them. All right. Brother Slim, do you have the key for the... Jazakallah khair. Brother Slim is silent, but he's doing us a favor in opening the... So people who are silent will have the test, inshallah, in a couple of weeks. And after the test, you'll become a full-time speaking member. Didn't you open this side last night? Here you go. Jazakallah khair. Maybe you can turn on the back one. All right, that's good. This is a slide from the Tafkhim and Tarqiq with some examples, and I think I'm hoping that it's clear enough. I mean, we don't have to talk about details about this. So on the right side you have the letters of isti'la, the letters that are always strong, with some examples. And then on the left side you have the letters that are sometimes soft and sometimes strong, with some examples. You have the word Rahim, for example. When the Ra is strong, you have the word Rizqa. When the Ra is soft, and you have the word Allah. When the Lam is strong, you have the word Halal. When the Lam is soft, and the Alif, when the Alif is strong, like the word Ghafir. And when the Alif is soft, when in the example is Sa'a. And the Ghunna, we mentioned the Ghunna, when the Ghunna is strong, like the example here is Mansura. Here we have Ikhfa, and the Ghunna here is strong because we have a Sad after it. And the example of Antum here, the Ta is one of the letters of Ikhfa, so we have Ikhfa with the Ghunna, and obviously we have a Ghunna, and this Ghunna is soft because of the Ta, because the Ta is soft. And the word Munqalaba here is, the Ghunna is strong because the Qaf is obviously one of the letters of Isti'la. And the word Indakum is soft because the Kaf is not one of the letters of Isti'la. So it's a soft letter. And here, these are examples of the levels of tafkhim. We spoke about it a few minutes ago. So we have the example of the word qala, and this is the strongest form of tafkhim when the letter of isti'la has a fatha and there's alif after it. And the second example is the second state of strength, when the qaf, or the letter of isti'la, in this case is a qaf, has a fatha and there is no alif after it. And the third level is when the letter of isti'la has a dhamma, like the word qu'ud. And the fourth level is when it has a sukoon, taqahar, for example, or iqtana, or iqtuni. Uqnuti, sorry. I was thinking that it's not a word from the Quran. And then iqra. And finally, when the letter of isti'la has a kasra, and that's the lowest level, in the word qil. And here, I already mentioned the first example, the word at-talaq. And here it's giving you the reference as well from the Quran. The first line on top, on the right hand side, we have the word talaq, which means, as I mentioned, divorce. And the word talaq, which means the day of meeting or the day of resurrection. Anyway, the second word is القانطين. قالوا بشرناك بالحق فلا تكن من القانطين, in Surah Al-hajj. And the word qanitin is those who are losing hope. And next to it is qanitin with the ta, right? Which means devout. وَكَانَتْ مِنَ الْقَانِتِينَ, and this is talking about Maryam alayhi salam. And the third line we have وَمَا كَانَ عَطَاءُ رَبِّكَ مَحْظُورًا, and this is in Surah Al-Isra, restrained. And on the same line, إِنَّ عَذَابَ رَبِّكَ كَانَ مَحْذُورًا, feared. And then the fourth line, notice that it is also in Surah Al-Isra, mastura, invisible, and mastura, inscribed or written. And then the fifth line, وَاتَّبَعَ هَوَاهُ فَتَرْدَى. فَتَرْدَى is perished. And وَلَسَوْفَ يُعْطِيكَ رَبُّكَ فَتَرْضَى with the dha, which means pleased or well pleased. And then وَقَصَمْنَا or وَكَمْ قَصَمْنَا مِنْ قَرْيَةٍ, destroyed or crushed. And qasamna, apportioned, allocated. And then finally in the last line, yushabun, defended from us, and yushabun, dragged. And you notice, as we mentioned before, it's the same word except one letter. But it's either seen with the sad or a ta with a ta, or a dhad with a dhal. Right? What else do we notice here? We notice that there are many examples from Surah Al-Isra. Surah Al-Isra. That's one of the challenges. One brother was telling me that he has trouble with Surah Al-Isra because of these words. There are a lot of words in this Surah Al-Isra. At the end of the ayah, you will find these kind of words. So if you are not familiar with the meaning of the word, you will not which one is which. وَكَانَ عَطَاءُ رَبِّكَ, is it مَحْذُورًا وَمَحْظُورًا وَمَسْتُورًا وَمَسْطُورًا? And there are many other words written in a similar fashion in this surah. You can look at it, inshallah, at home. Yes?
Why the writer of Tahar and Tahar was different?
The lamb.
Yeah, the writing.
This we mentioned it in the past, where we said anything that's written in a small character, as it is here in this surah, Surah Al-Baqarah, in this word, At-Talaq, Surah Al-Baqarah, that means it was not part of the original writing. It was not part of the original script, which means that the people at the time, they used to write it, even though they used to write it without that alif, but they used to pronounce the alif. And this one, they used to write it with an actual alif. This is the difference. And this is how they write these things in the Quran. Which means this one, this alif here, is also not part of the original script. And this one similarly. Anything that's small, qanitin, and then qanitin, same thing. And also, you notice, maybe the most famous one is Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, where the word ar-Rahman is not written with an alif, at least with not with a big alif. All right. Okay, let's read Surah Al-Takwir. Let's see how much time. Jazakallah khair. Surah Al-Takwir, Surah number 81. Brother Ahmed.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. إذا الشمس كورت وإذا النجوم انكدرت وإذا الجبال سيرت وإذا العشار عطلت وإذا الوحوش حشرت وإذا البحار سجرت وإذا النفوس زوجت وإذا الموءودة سئلت بأي ذنب قتلت وإذا الصحف نشرت وإذا السماء كشطت وإذا الجحيم سعرت وإذا الجنة أزلفت علمت نفس ما أحضرت فلا أقسم بالخنس الجوار الكنس والليل إذا عسعس والصبح إذا تنفس إنه لقول رسول كريم ذي قوة عند ذي العرش مكين مطاع ثم أمين وما صاحبكم بمجنون ولقد رآه بالأفق المبين وما هو على الغيب بضنين وما هو بقول شيطان رجيم فأين تذهبون إن هو إلا ذكر للعالمين لمن شاء منكم أن يستقيم وما تشاءون إلا أن يشاء الله رب العالمين.
جزاك الله خير. Brother Hanif.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. إذا الشمس كورت وإذا النجوم انكدرت وإذا الجبال سيرت وإذا العشار عطلت وإذا الوحوش حشرت وإذا البحار سجرت وإذا النفوس زوجت وإذا الموءودة سئلت بأي ذنب قتلت وإذا الصحف نشرت وإذا السماء كشطت وإذا الجحيم سعرت وإذا الجنة أزلفت علمت نفس ما أحضرت فلا أقسم بالخنس الجوار الكنس والليل إذا عسعس والصبح إذا تنفس إنه لقول رسول كريم ذي قوة عند ذي العرش مكين مطاع ثم أمين وما صاحبكم بمجنون ولقد رآه بالأفق المبين وما هو على الغيب بضنين وما هو بقول شيطان رجيم فأين تذهبون إن هو إلا ذكر للعالمين لمن شاء منكم أن يستقيم وما تشاءون إلا أن يشاء الله
Brother Sajjad.
بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إذا الشمس كورت وإذا النجوم كدرت وإذا الجبال سيرت وإذا العشار عطلت وإذا الوحوش حشرت وإذا البحار سجرت وإذا النفوس زوجت وإذا الموءودة سئلت بأي ذنب قتلت وإذا الصحف نشرت وإذا السماء كشطت وإذا الجحيم سعرت وإذا الجنة أزلفت علمت نفس ما أحضرت فلا أقسم بالخنس الجوار الكنس والليل إذا عسعس والصبح إذا تنفس إنه لقول رسول كريم ذي قوة عند ذي العرش مكين مطاع ثم أمين وما صاحبكم بمجنون ولقد رآه بالأفق المبين ولقد رآه بالأفق المبين وما هو على الغيب بضنين وما هو بقول شيطان رجيم فأين تذهبون إن هو إلا ذكر للعالمين لمن شاء منكم أن يستقيم وما تشاءون إلا أن يشاء الله رب العالمين.
Repeat from لمن شاء.
لمن شاء منكم أن يستقيم.
أي يستقيم.
لمن شاء منكم أن يستقيم وما تشاءون إلا أن يشاء الله رب العالمين.
The word منكم in لمن شاء منكم, you are making the ghunna too strong. You are saying min, right, instead of minkum, right? Maybe you can pay attention to that. Otherwise, the الهمس was good. جزاك الله خير. Brother Yahya.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إذا الشمس كورت وإذا النجوم كدرت وإذا الجبال سيرت وإذا العشار عطلت وإذا الوحوش حشرت وإذا البحار سجرت وإذا النفوس زوجت وإذا الموءودة سئلت بأي ذنب قتلت وإذا الصحف نشرت وإذا السماء كشطت وإذا
السماء say again.
وإذا السماء كشطت وإذا الجحيم سعرت وإذا الجنة أزلفت علمت نفس ما أحضرت. علمت نفس ما أحضرت.
Did we hear the ta of علمت? We couldn't hear the ta of علمت, right?
علمت نفس ما أحضرت.
That's better.
فلا أقسم بالخنس الجوار الكنس والليل إذا عسعس والصبح إذا تنفس. والصبح إذا تنفس إنه لقول رسول كريم ذي قوة عند ذي العرش مكين مطاع ثم أمين وما صاحبكم بمجنون ولقد رآه بالأفق
ولقد
رآه
See the difference?
وما هو على الغيب بضنين وما هو بقول شيطان رجيم.
شيطان الرجيم like this? Is it like this? شيطان الرجيم.
شيطان رجيم. فأين تذهبون إن هو إلا ذكر للعالمين لمن شاء منكم أن يستقيم. وما تشاءون إلا
Alright, Jazakallah khair. Brother Abu Ahya.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. إذا الشمس كورت وإذا النجوم انكدرت وإذا الجبال سيرت وإذا الجبال سيرت وإذا العشار عطلت
وإذا العشاء. You said عشاء.
وإذا العشار عطلت. Still strong.
You're being affected by the ra.
وإذا العشار عطلت.
عشاء رو. عشاء, the sheen is soft and the ra is strong.
وإذا العشار عطلت.
You said sha now. Sha. Now.
وإذا العشار عطلت.
والعشاء. عشاء رو.
وإذا العشار عطلت وإذا الوحوش حشرت وإذا البحار سجرت.
You said ha. بحا.
وإذا البحار سجرت وإذا النفوس زوجت وإذا الموءودة سئلت بأي ذنب قتلت وإذا الصحف نشرت وإذا السماء كشطت وإذا الجحيم سعرت وإذا الجنة أزلفت علمت نفس ما أحضرت فلا أقسم بالخنس الجوار الكنس والليل إذا عسعس والصبح إذا تنفس إنه لقول رسول كريم ذي قوة عند ذي العرش مكين مطاع ثم أمين.
ذي قوة
عند ذي العرش مكين.
عرشي. Is it عرشي? Alright, العريش.
ذي قوة عند ذي العرش مكين.
The ra is soft or strong?
Strong.
Alright, make it strong.
ذي قوة عند ذي العرش مكين مطاع ثم أمين وما صاحبكم بمجنون ولقد رآه.
We corrected Yahya for this. Yeah.
ولقد رآه بالأفق المبين وما هو على الغيب بضنين وما هو بقول شيطان رجيم. وما هو بقول شيطان رجيم فأين تذهبون إن هو إلا ذكر للعالمين لمن شاء منكم أن يستقيم وما تشاءون إلا أن يشاء الله رب العالمين.
جزاك الله خير. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. إذا الشمس كورت وإذا النجوم انكدرت وإذا الجبال سيرت وإذا العشار عطلت وإذا الوحوش حشرت وإذا البحار سجرت وإذا النفوس زوجت وإذا الموءودة سئلت بأي ذنب قتلت وإذا الصحف نشرت وإذا السماء كشطت وإذا الجحيم سعرت وإذا الجنة أزلفت علمت نفس ما أحضرت فلا أقسم بالخنس الجوار الكنس والليل إذا عسعس والصبح إذا تنفس إنه لقول رسول كريم ذي قوة عند ذي العرش مكين مطاع ثم أمين وما صاحبكم بمجنون ولقد رآه بالأفق المبين وما هو على الغيب بضنين وما هو بقول شيطان رجيم فأين تذهبون إن هو إلا ذكر للعالمين لمن شاء منكم أن يستقيم وما تشاءون إلا أن يشاء الله رب العالمين. Notice in ayah number 15 and 16, 17 and 18, it ends with a sin, right? And the sin is one of the letters of hams, right? So we say al-khunnas, kunnas, as, right? But this is also part of hams. But you don't find people who have a problem saying this, right? As a result, there's no point like talking about it, because it's not a common problem, and I haven't found anybody who has an issue with this when it comes to putting it into practice. And the other thing I remembered a story, in case I didn't tell you this story before. It has to do with makharij al-huruf, or tafkhim al-tarqiq, where this teacher was teaching the student a'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. I have a feeling that I said it before, but anyway, I'll say it again. And he was trying to make sure the students make the ta soft, or the ta strong, the ta, because the ta is one of the letters of isti'la, right? Ash-shaytan, not ash-shaytan, because the student was saying a'udhu billahi min ash-shaytani. So he was making the lam strong, the word, the lam of Allah, a'udhu billahi min ash-shaytani. And the teacher was insisting, the lam here is soft, Allah is soft, shaitan, the ta is strong. And he kept saying this, Allah is soft, shaitan is strong. He said, no. He said, Allah is strong, shaitan is weak. So I have to say it this way, logically. All right. Okay, I don't have a homework written for next week, but we'll figure out something on the spot, inshallah. Something that's suitable for the topic. All right. Any questions? I will close, inshallah. We'll pray Salat al-Isha for those who didn't pray, inshallah. All right. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. جزاكم الله خير.